Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a requested video on Run Disney. Now I have done 2 Disney races. I've done both of them with my husband and we are signed up for a third. Now all of these races are half marathons. I've never done a Disney World marathon. I've never done a Disney World 5K or 10K or a 10 miler. They've all been half marathons. But I think this information is totally applicable to all Disney races. If I think of something that might not apply to a different length of race, I'll let you know. But like I said, I think this should apply to all of them. So, okay, starting off, if you are interested in running a race in Disney World, you need to check out the Run Disney website. If you are looking for a particular event or you're not sure which event, either way, I guess, if you're looking for a specific one or if you're not sure which one you want to run, the first thing I have done when I've booked all 3 of these is hover over events near the top, and then all of the events that are already scheduled are going to pop up. So for example, they have a virtual run now, Disneyland Paris, Disney Wine and Dine half marathon weekend, Star Wars virtual half, Walt Disney World marathon weekend, Disney Princess, and then Star Wars rival run weekend. So they have all of the events listed and their dates, the dates of the weekend, and you can click on whatever event you're interested in. So I'm running the Disney Princess half marathon with my husband again this coming February, so February 2019, and we did it in February 2018 as well. Obviously, we had a good time because we're doing it again. Other than that, we have run the Wine and Dine half marathon. We did that several years ago. Okay, so once you have decided which event you want to run, you need to think about registration. Depending on the race and what races are offered, they sell out very, very quickly. I've not experienced but have heard stories of races selling out within just a couple of hours. And I think a lot of that has to do with how many events are offered, specifically how many half marathons are offered on each coast, because Disney does a lot of challenges. For example, there's the coast to coast, and that means you need to run a half marathon in Disneyland in California, and then you need to run a half marathon in Disney World in Florida in the same year. I believe it's the same calendar year. If there's a lot of construction happening, Disney might not offer a certain race one year. So I know that can affect people who are wanting to do like the Coast to Coast Challenge, for example, because they have to get these races in if they want to get their Coast to Coast medal. There's also things like the Dopey Challenge and the Goofy Challenge and whatever else. And that is when you run some combination of races in the same weekend. So you might run a 10K on Saturday and then a half marathon the following day, and that's one challenge. And then you might run, for a separate challenge, you might run a 10K one day, a half marathon the next day, and then a full marathon the following day, and that's a separate challenge. And when you do the challenges, you get an individual medal for the race. So you'd get a half marathon medal and a full marathon medal, and then you would get a separate challenge medal. So yes, watch the Run Disney website. The website will tell you when registration is going to open for a particular race. I have always registered right on the day of because I was ready at the time that it opened because I didn't know if it was gonna sell out. And at least for people who are not local, it obviously requires a lot more planning. So I wanted to make sure I was gonna get into this. So we signed up in August of 2018 for a February 2019 Disney Princess half marathon. Now, at that point, the hotel prices were already out for 2019. We have also registered for races when the hotel prices weren't out. Now, like I said, I've done this. I've signed up for 3 races. I've worked with clients who have done races as well. You can sign up through Run Disney. You can do it as an entire package, work with a travel agent that's gonna book it as a package. You can book it separately. I've always done it separately. I don't think it really makes that much of a difference, honestly. And by doing it separately, what I mean is I make my I register for the race online, and then I book the rest of my trip as I normally would. My hotel and tickets and dining, I book them separately. I've not seen the Disney event on my Disney Experience page, but that doesn't matter, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'll get into that in a minute. Now, one question that I've had a lot regarding these Run Disney events is, do you need to have a park ticket to run through the parks? Because if you've seen these, you know, pictures, videos, whatever, of people doing these events, they're running through the parks. If you are just running through the park as part of the race, you need to have your race bib, and your race entry fee covers entering the park and running through the park. Outside of the race, if you want to enter the park before, in the case of the Wine and Dine Half Marathon, when it's in the evening, if you want to go to the park before the race, or in the case of the other events where if it's in the morning, like the Disney Princess Half Marathon, if you want to go to a park after the race, you need to have a separate park ticket. So if you're just running through the park as part of the race, you do not need a park ticket. Your race entry fee will cover that. Now, in terms of picking up your race packet, your bib, that kind of thing, you need to be there. Somebody else cannot pick it up for you. That change was made a few years ago. Even with written consent and ID, you can't pick up somebody else's. You need to pick up your own. So for the Disney Princess Half Marathon on Sunday, we were able to pick up our race packet for sure on Friday and Saturday before. I don't know about Thursday before. I think it's just Friday and Saturday before. Could be Thursday. Either way, and we are planning on flying to Florida on Friday before the race. And this is because I have always heard you'd never want to fly the day of or the day immediately before a race. I think just for your legs and stuff, you want to be careful. And in addition, you want to give yourself an extra cushion to pick up that race packet. If something were to happen with the flight and it were to be delayed, I don't want to be flying in on Saturday and then, you know, somehow something happens and now I'm not going to I would either miss the race or I would not have time to pick up my race packet, in which case you don't get to run. So give yourself enough time for that. Another thing you need to think about is where you're going to stay. Depending on the event and the size of the event, there may be host resorts. And what a host resort is a Disney hotel on Disney property that provides transportation to and from race events. So that includes picking up your race packet, getting you to the starting line, or as close to the starting line as it can get you, and then bringing you from the finish line back to your hotel. Now, when we did the Wine and Dine Half Marathon, there were specific host resorts. So for example, and I don't remember what they were, but say Caribbean Beach was not one of them. If I stayed at Caribbean Beach, I would be responsible for finding my own transportation to get my race packet and to get to the starting line and to get from the finish line. We stayed at Port Orleans Riverside, which was one of the host resorts. So they had separate transportation for those events. And now they did not use the regular Disney buses for this. They had a separate, and they had like a separate pickup area. They had a little sign outside that said, you know, Run Disney transportation. And then there was signs on the front of the buses. And I believe they were Mears drivers. And yeah, they brought us, like I said, to the ESPN, which is where they had the Expo to pick up your packet. And that's where they had the official Run Disney merchandise and all that jazz. So for the larger races like the Disney Princess Half Marathon, all of the resorts are host resorts. So it doesn't matter where you stay, but that's definitely something you want to think about and check out before you book your hotel, because they close a lot of roads for these races and it can be a huge, huge pain to try and figure out how to get to the starting line. And then parking, and it's a mess. So I wouldn't, even when we've rented a car, I have never driven myself to the race. We've driven to ESPN to pick up the race packet. We did that once. I went myself with using the Disney transportation, and that worked equally fine, but we've never driven to the race because they just close off so many roads and it's ridiculous. you need to pay attention to how early you have to get on the bus, because you are there way earlier before the start of the race than any other race I've ever been a part of outside of Disney. I want to say we had to be on the bus by like 3:30 or something like that in the morning for, maybe it was even 3. It was early for the race to start at like 5:30. So when you're planning, take that into consideration as well. And what are you gonna do for breakfast before the race if you eat breakfast? Because things aren't gonna be open at that hour. Now, speaking of I mentioned the Race Expo, and this is where the official Run Disney merchandise tent is. And that's basically just all of their stuff that has the Run Disney logo on it. They have clothes, they have cups, they have stickers, and they have all kinds of things. That is right in the ESPN complex. So if you're interested in visiting that, you can do that when you pick up your race packet. It's just in a different building. I was a little disappointed. They didn't have nearly as much stuff as I was expecting when I went last year. It was a lot less crowded, but that was probably than I was expecting and that I've seen pictures of in previous years, but that was probably because they didn't have that much stuff. What I was pleasantly surprised by, was even though I didn't need it, they had a lot of full costumes that you could buy there. And I'm sure they were terribly expensive, but they were pretty cool. So yeah, if you decide at the last minute you want a costume, they do have them at the Expo. I don't know how I'd feel about running in something completely new for the first time as part of a race, but they did have some full costumes. And like I said, there were Disney themed, obviously, because people definitely dress up. Now, having done the Wine and Dine Half Marathon and the Disney Princess Half Marathon, I can say in the Wine and Dine Half Marathon, far fewer people dressed up, which isn't surprising. I would say less than a quarter of the people dressed up, and some people, the people I did see dressed up were, you know, typical Disney princess type costumes, or princess inspired, I should say. There were a couple of guys that I've seen in both races running in full princess dress, but normally for the girls, it's more inspired. So they'll have a top that matches that of the princess they're running, and a separate bottom that matches in a skirt, and then they might wear a special headband, whatever. I haven't seen too many girls running in full dresses, but I have seen some guys. For the Wine and Dine, I saw people dressed as particular food items. We did not dress up for that race. We just wore, my husband just wore regular clothes, and then I wore just a shirt that I had custom made on the back for my dad. It rained the entire time, very hard for that race. It sucked. It was absolutely awful. So there was less time between corrals than there normally would be. I want to say normally there's several minutes between corrals, but because of the rain and there was lightning off in the distance, which if the lightning gets within a certain distance of the race, they will stop, cancel, delay, what have you, the race. Thankfully, we did not have that experience, but it was awful. So we ran through, for the Wine and Dine, it started at 10 p.m. We ran through Animal Kingdom, probably for miles like 3 to somewhere between 5 and 6. And that was very slippery with there was puddles that, I remember that was extremely slippery. And then we ran, most of it was on the road, and then we ran through Hollywood Studios. That was probably around mile 9 or 10. And then we went from Hollywood Studios into the back of Epcot, like through a back entrance. Okay, I keep saying a back entrance. What I mean is, it's not an entrance that people normally use. It's like an employee entrance or a service entrance or something. And then we went through the back of Epcot, kind of near where, we also ran on the boardwalk, I should say. And then we ran near where, I don't think we ran through World Showcase, I really don't. Or it was raining too hard. But I think it was kind of where World Showcase meets Future World. We came in through there, and then we ran around the back of Spaceship Earth into the front, and then we ended in front of Spaceship Earth. So we ran in 3 parks, not the Magic Kingdom. Now for the Disney Princess Half Marathon, we started in front of Epcot, and we ran to the Magic Kingdom, we ran through the Magic Kingdom, and then finished running just around into Epcot again, and then we finished there. So we only ran in those 2 parks. For the Disney Princess Half Marathon, I would say, I guessed about 50% of people probably dressed up My husband guessed probably around 60% of people. I asked him if he was uncomfortable running as a man in a predominantly women's race. He said not at all. There were definitely, he was not surprised by the number of men that were running. I was surprised. I expected to see, because I heard that it's like there are very, very few men. And I think that's true relative to the number of women running, but I expected to only see like 1 or 2 other men, and that was not the case. There was quite a bit more men. So if you are interested in running as a couple, definitely do it. I don't think it's weird at all. We ran in costumes this time, not dresses, but costumes. And we saw a lot of people running in costumes. Like I said, 50 to 60% of people for that race we guessed were probably running in costumes. Some men in dresses, some just running with their wives. The only caveat to a man running that race is they cannot be in the first corral because they want the winner to be a woman, but I believe the winner was still a man this last one, even like from the second corral. Again, there's space between the corrals, and in terms of which corral you're assigned, you can submit a time, and you have to tell them the date of the race, the name of the race, the time, and then I don't know if we had to give them a link to it. We might have even had to give them a link, but either way, RunDisney will check your time to make sure that you're not lying about, you know, your time, so that you get in a better corral, and then they assign you your corral based on that. If you don't have a time, they will either randomly assign you or put you in the back. There is a time requirement. The minimum pace is, I believe it's 16-minute per mile pace, and they have the balloon ladies. They're the walkers in the very back, and you just need to stay ahead of them. If they pass you, that's when they do a sweep and they pick you up, and then they will escort you to the finish line in a bus. Now, if they pass you like once, you know, just for like a second, you're not gonna automatically get picked up. They were pretty forgiving of it when we did the Wine and Dine half marathon, and that may have been because of the weather, but they had certain points that they would do a sweep. So say at like 3 miles, anybody who was behind them, then they would get picked up, and then at 6 miles or whatever it was. But it wasn't just the second, you know, one of them passes you, you are picked up. That wasn't it. And they're the balloon ladies because they have balloons attached to them. They're like helium balloons, and you can see them floating above them. But they're walking at a 16-minute per mile pace. And what that means is if you are in several corrals ahead, and I mean, these are large races, so there are many corrals, but if you are several corrals ahead, they let them go, you know, like A corral starts off, then there's gonna be a few minutes, and then they let B corral go, and then while B corral is going through the starting line, C starts to move up, and then they wait a couple minutes, and then C goes, etc. So the first people are not going to need a 16-minute per mile pace. That being said, if you're in the first corral, you probably have a race time entry fee, and you are much faster than 16-minute per mile. But in theory, that's how it works. If you're a couple of corrals ahead of them, you actually have a bit more time because of that. People stop and take pictures. There's entertainment. When we did the Wine and Dine half marathon and it poured, there was a very little entertainment. I was super bummed out by that. I was very disappointed in Disney. Because you can check the weather online ahead of time, like 10 days to know, you know, what the weather is going to be like. And I don't think it would have been that difficult to have some kind of like tarp or tent or something out there so that people could go and take pictures. I understand they're not going to have somebody in this big foam costume sitting out in the rain. It's kind of funny to think about, like, squeeze them out. I understand they're not going to do that, but I think they easily could have had something like that. They could have had entertainment set up, music playing at least under these things, you know, under a tarp. So that was pretty disappointing that that wasn't an option. There was way more picture opportunities and characters out for the Disney Princess Half Marathon. It was good weather. It was a little warm, but in terms of like rain, it was fine. So they had a lot more characters out, and there are lines for these characters, and people do stop and take pictures. But again, if you're in one of the front corrals, you have an earlier corral, I should say, and you're running faster than a 16-minute mile, you have time to do those things. If you're in the last corral and you're planning on walking, you're probably not going to have time to take pictures just because there is that minimum pace requirement, because they have to get the roads open, they have to get the parks open, that kind of thing. Then when we were done, there was a lot of picture opportunities. We got our medals, and there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of picture opportunities. We got the Mylar, I think is what they are, blankets, reflecting blankets, and we had cooling towels for the Disney Princess Half Marathon that we got to keep. And they're reusable, I've used them. I didn't see it for the Princess, but for the Wine and Dine, they were handing out packets of Tylenol, which I think a lot of people needed, because you run differently when you're running in heavy rain and your shoes are soaked and, you know, for hours. So we were very sore after that one, because you're running totally differently than how you normally would. But then we went and picked up our bag that you can do a gear check based on your bib number, and you write it on the bag, and that was all right at the where the buses dropped you off and where they pick you up. So you just go back with your bib, and then they give you your stuff back. And then you get on your bus and go back to your resort. So yeah, those were our experiences. That's what I know about the Run Disney races. I know it was kind of long-winded, but it's an investment. They're very expensive. I want to say the half marathons are about $180 a piece, not including an online processing fee, which don't get me started with that. I don't even know what that means. But yeah, those are our experiences. Obviously, we've enjoyed it. We're doing another one, and I have read the Runner's World website, and the Disney Princess Half Marathon seems to always be listed in one of the top races to do, and I've done it once and I'm doing it again, and I had a great time. So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and enjoy your race. Bye.